Hello! I am Mac, at least for a day, and everything's going to be okay. In this video, I will be reading the comments from the Will We Get Another Major Storyline for No Man's Sky video. First is Plo617. They say, I personally feel like the universe is a bit too dead/static for a proper storyline. Also, the fact that it's been limited to text-based storytelling without any cinematic moments leaves a lot to be desired. Maybe next gen we can get walking NPCs with more interaction, a lot more audio story dialogue, and some big cinematic moments. Now, I strongly agree with some things that he said, and I disagree with a few things. First of all, I disagree that we'll ever get cinematics in No Man's Sky. Sean Murray said in an interview before the game even came out that No Man's Sky would not be a game that would ever have cinematics, but that there would be storytelling in other ways, and he was, I think, demonstrating the lore, the ways that you could access lore, and he showed like a monolith and stuff that would show lore. So no, I don't think they'll ever add cinematics, and cinematics would add a lot more data to the game. Like, Sean Murray even tweeted when the game first came out that most of the several gigabytes of the game were music. Because of the procedural generation nature of the game takes up very little data. It was like something like 700 megabytes made up the core of the game, while the rest of the several gigabytes were just the music. So I don't think they're ever going to add cinematics, because that would take up a ton more data that they would have to download. Not that that would prevent them from doing it, but Sean Murray has said that this is not the kind of game that would have cinematics. And also, it would be very difficult to do, because if they had a pre-rendered movie cinematic, it wouldn't really be able to fit anywhere. Like, if we had a cinematic suddenly happen on a planet, it wouldn't be set in that planet anymore if it was completely pre-rendered. Now, there are games that will use kind of on-the-fly events where you'll have a conversation with another character, and it will have things around you that can vary. Like, you could have the same conversation with that person in several different locations in the game, and the game just kind of makes that conversation happen wherever you are. I guess something like that, and we pretty much have that right now. Having a conversation with an NPC is a way to get dialogue and information, and it can be set anywhere. But a completely pre-rendered cinematic wouldn't work, because it couldn't be set on whatever planet you're on, or even what star system you're in, because different star systems have different colored space. So if, let's say, there was a cinematic of a big space battle, it wouldn't even look like where you are, because it wouldn't have the same planets or the same color of the star system's aurora, corona coloring. So I definitely don't think they'll ever do any kind of pre-rendered cinematic like that. But I very much agree and like that he mentioned NPCs walking around. That is something that people have asked about forever, and that they really need to add. They need to make it so the NPCs, at the very least, stand up and walk around the space station or the freighter, and things like that. That would go a long way to making the world seem more real, because as it is, it doesn't seem like the NPCs ever move or do anything. They're always in that same spot no matter what. And it's just kind of the illusion, since we're always traveling to different space stations. The space stations all look the same, except they have different NPCs in them. But if you go back to a space station you've been to before, all of the exact same NPCs will be sitting or standing in the exact same place every time you go back to that specific space station. So it would be very cool if the NPCs would walk around, use computer terminals, especially in the freighters. When you go into freighters, it would be nice to see them actually look like they're working on the freighter instead of just sitting there staring at the control panel. And I'll go into that more in the next video. Little preview is that the next video is going to be about a space update, because a lot of comments I've been getting are people suggesting things that they want to be added in space. But let's stay on topic. He doesn't really, Plo didn't really give a lot of suggestions for how story can be improved. He just kind of said that because the universe is so static, meaning planets don't move, objects on planets don't move, creatures move a little bit, but it never really seems like much is happening. Big space battles can spawn, but not very often, and it never really seems like a star system is truly at war. There'll just be one big space battle or a pirate attack, and most of the space star system will be exactly the same. There's no ground combat, there's no NPCs fighting each other on the ground, there's just a little bit of combat in space. And so conflict level of star systems don't even vary that much. So he's right that the universe needs to be more dynamic for it to seem like things are happening, to seem like there's actually a story going on. And he also mentioned audio story dialogue, which we don't have. But I will mention that I really like in the Atlas Rises storyline that they used the Hollow Terminus to bring up other NPCs in the storyline, like Artemis, Apollo, and Null. So that was a good way, I think, to have storyline and have special characters without having cinematics. So yeah, the Hollow Terminus were a really good idea, and I wish they would use them more and add more characters that you could talk to on the Hollow Termini. But moving on, Just In Case, which is a really good name by the way, says it would be awesome to be able to explore the world of Glass. Maybe a storyline trying to save previously trapped lost travelers. Hello Games create some cool collectibles for our bases for us to gather there. Corrupt walkers as the enemies? Question mark. So some of his ideas there are kind of things we already have in the game. Saving previously trapped lost travelers, I mean, we do that with Artemis, and there will be a spoiler warning on this video. So yeah, Artemis is a traveler that was lost, and in the last video I talked about how there's a whole bunch of lore about travelers being trapped and killed. And so basically Artemis is the one example of a time that we actually get to interact with one of those travelers. And although it ends up turning out that Artemis was already dead before we even talked to them, we were able to talk to them almost like some kind of time traveling thing, where Artemis is already dead, but we were like able to speak into the past to be able to talk to them. But then we found out that they'd already been dead for like 20 years. But yeah, that was a way for them to make this whole theme of travelers being trapped and killed a part of an actual storyline that we were able to take part in. Because I'll admit, it's not really possible for them to make us the target of being trapped and killed, because if we died permanently, the game would be over. They can't do that. So all we can really do is learn about other travelers that have been hopelessly trapped by evil forces. But yeah, so Atlas Rises kind of did do that. And he talks about cool collectibles in the world of Glass. We have that. We can get collectibles here. Oh, and I have my heads up display turned off, so I can't look for one right now. But yeah, all of these exotic planets, like the one I'm on, have collectibles on them. So he's just kind of using that idea and saying that the world of Glass would also have collectibles like that. And he talks about corrupt walkers, which is something that I bet they will add eventually. And we'll talk more about the corrupt sentinels later. But I think the corrupt sentinels are, or hopefully will become, a bigger part of some storyline later on. Next, uh-oh. Oh no, I forgot to write this person's name down. Dang it. Oh, I'm really sorry, whoever made this comment. I'm sorry I forgot to put your name down. I will look up and write down your name in a pinned comment on the video. I'm sorry I forgot to write your name down when I made these notes. But this person commented, I definitely think that more handcrafted elements would help the game. We could use more complex structures to explore. So I definitely agree with that. I would like more buildings in the game. They haven't added new types of buildings in a long time. The last new type of building they added was the Hollow Terminus in Atlas Rises, which was almost 2 years ago that they added that new building. Other than that, there have just been pretty much no new buildings that I can think of. I think there might be something slightly new that was added in next, but I can't even think of it right now, so it probably wasn't very major. So yeah, there really haven't been any new buildings, and I would like to see bigger buildings and things like that. One thing people talk about a lot, which kind of annoys me a little bit, but people often talk about Sam Swain, which the only reason people even know that he works for Hello Games is because they looked him up on LinkedIn and found out. I don't think Sam Swain has even ever announced that he works for Hello Games. So I'm not even convinced that he still works for Hello Games. But anyway, people keep citing Sam Swain and saying that because he's on the Hello Games team, and he is an expert in procedural generation, and he's created this program. I can't think of what it's called, but it's basically a program for making procedurally generated cities and dungeons and things like that. And it's because of him that people keep saying, oh, we're definitely going to get cities in No Man's Sky because of Sam Swain. Eventually he's gonna add cities to the game. I've talked about it in a previous video, but I definitely don't think we'll ever get cities. That is also something Sean Murray said that No Man's Sky was not about, that he didn't want No Man's Sky to be like Grand Theft Auto with big cities or anything like that. And I've said before that No Man's Sky is a derivative of No Man's Land, which talks about, you know, like a wasteland where there's not much civilization. So No Man's Sky is not the kind of game that will ever have cities, in my opinion. But if Sam Swain is still on the Hello Games team, and if they're going to be using his procedural generation program, I do think that it could be used to make procedurally generated dungeons. So like this person said, we could have bigger and better structures such as ruins. I would love it if they would make like partially underground ruins, or like a big pyramid ruin that would actually be a maze that we could explore, and they would be procedurally generated. So I've watched on Sam Swain's website where he shows a video of a dungeon being generated by his program, and I definitely think that they could do that in No Man's Sky. They could have like a large ruin building, and it would have a procedurally generated maze. We could go through it and we could get some kind of treasure at the end of the maze. That would be really cool. And other buildings could be made larger. Space stations could have like lots of interconnected corridors, and it would all be procedurally generated so that every space station is different and is much more interesting than the cookie cutter space stations that we have now. So I definitely think that Sam Swain or somebody's procedural programs could be used to make us larger and better buildings, and that could be also utilized in some kind of a storyline, so that we could have like something that I've suggested and emailed to Hello Games is the idea of a Sentinel space station, like a big space station full of Sentinels, and it would be like a maze, and you'd go in there and like destroy the core or steal the core, and then you'd have to escape before it self-destructed or something. That would be a really cool adventure kind of thing, and that could be worked into a storyline where you need a Sentinel space station core in order to make something to save the universe. I don't know. Or something like that. Or they could make new Atlas stations that are basically procedurally generated dungeons. Whatever. I really wish that they would look into making procedurally generated dungeons instead of just having overworlds of planets. Give us something more intricate and interesting to do. And it doesn't have to be handcrafted, it can be procedural. So next is Max792. He says, I'd love a new storyline based around another big war between the races breaking out. It could bring new purpose to high conflict systems. And he goes on to list some other ideas, and I'm paraphrasing: big space battles, choosing sides, missions to help certain sides, and this could improve the conflict level of the star system. I've had ideas about this before that I've also emailed to Hello Games a long time ago. I said that there should be wars in some star systems, and there would basically be like a leaderboard or a progress bar where you could help one side or the other. Like, say there's a star system where the Viking and the Gek are fighting each other. If you help one side, then that side's progress bar will increase, and if you help a certain alien race take over a star system, then you would get some kind of reward from them and things like that. So yes, I definitely agree. We need more actual space battles and actual wars in star systems. Spawning one big space battle every 2 hours is not enough. We need more than that. So I really hope that they expand on the space combat system and make it so that we have actual wars that we can participate in, and actual freighters fighting each other. All that ever happens in a big space battle is pirates spawn in and they attack a freighter, but we never have freighters of both sides shooting at each other. So it's always just a case of the little pirates attacking the big freighters. It's never a space battle between two big armies and their freighters and frigates fighting each other. I really wish that they would make space battles like that. So yeah, good suggestion there. Oh yeah, and he added, this could include the overarching evil force which is causing the races to be at war. So I really like that idea. That would work it into a storyline. So we would suddenly start having these bigger space wars in star systems, and it would fit into a storyline that some force is controlling them, like the Korvax could be hacked into and are being controlled. That's why they would fight, because the Korvax are supposed to be a peaceful race. But if an evil force is controlling them and making them fight, that would make more sense. And of course the Gek are also supposed to be peaceful, but they were previously the Gek first spawn, so they could turn evil again because of influence. Like, the influence of the Korvax originally made the Gek peaceful, and so then this evil force could make them aggressive again. And of course the Viking are a warrior race, so it wouldn't be too hard to make them start fighting again. But yeah, I really like that idea to work a malevolent force into an update that involves more space combat. Next is Stephen Rawling. They say, how about the base computer lore which speaks of Laylaps the Sentinel? Maybe Laylaps is still in the universe and could provide a revelation if found. So yeah, the new Base Computer Archives has a storyline, again, about a traveler that goes to the world of glass or interacts with the world of glass in some way, and it's because of that that they meet a friendly sentinel named Laylaps. They also meet a member of the Gek first spawn, and I guess it's like either a time travel thing or they were preserved in the world of glass, because it even says in the lore that the Gek first spawn didn't exist anymore. The Gek had already become peaceful. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I read that lore. But basically he meets a Gek first spawn from the ancient past. And cool thing about it is it tells us that the Gek first spawn were much larger. So Gek are short and small because of the genetic change that made them become peaceful. So they were originally much larger, probably similar to Viking. But anyway, like he said, Laylaps is a friendly sentinel, and it would be cool if we could interact with them. I had this idea a long time ago. I don't want to sound like I'm always claiming that I had an idea first, but I did way back, of course, before the Space Anomalies doors were open at all. I emailed Hello Games and I said that behind those doors in the Space Anomaly there should be like other NPCs, and I even mentioned there could be a friendly sentinel behind one of the doors and maybe a Viking character. They didn't do that, unfortunately. They put a simulation machine behind one door, and now, most recently, they put the Quicksilver synthesis bot on the other side of the final door. So they haven't done that, but it would be cool if a friendly sentinel like Laylaps did become a character in the game. I would like that a lot. But this also gave me an idea. Well, it made me think about the fact that the Quicksilver synthesis bot, although it was originally just a vendor, it kind of became involved in a storyline. In the final community event that we got near the end of last year, and it went on into this year, the Quicksilver synthesis bot became the main character of that little quote-unquote storyline. He talked to us instead of Polo. Polo and for one mission Nada were the ones that talked to us throughout the community events. But then at the final one, the Quicksilver synthesis bot apparently gained sentience and started to talk to us. So that is really cool. I like that idea of a simple robot becoming more intelligent as it gets more data, and then it becomes an actual character. A good example of this is the movie The Avengers, Age of Ultron, that the second in the Avengers series. In Age of Ultron, of course, they had the cliche evil AI, Ultron, that immediately became evil as soon as he was created and started to try to take over the world and destroy humans and all that, which was stupid. I didn't like that part. I don't like it when they just make AI seem like it's something that's going to turn evil as soon as it's created. But they kind of saved themselves a bit by later in the movie they made a benevolent AI. So Jarvis, of course, there's already going to be a spoiler warning on the title of this video, so this is spoilers for Age of Ultron too. Jarvis, who was Tony Stark's AI assistant, who was always in the Iron Man movies, which was kind of a comic relief in some ways, even though it was a very robotic character. The banter between Tony Stark and Jarvis was always interesting. But Jarvis became an actual superhero, which was totally out of the blue, totally unexpected. So when they were trying to stop Ultron, they had this like mysterious body that had the Power Stone in it, and to try and stop Ultron, they put Jarvis's personality and also part of Ultron or something, I don't know, but they put all this different stuff together, and they ended up creating Vision, who was another superhero from the Marvel Universe. But Jarvis became Vision, and he became this very intelligent superhero who was also an AI, and so he became a good AI. And I really like that because it's an example of how AI doesn't have to turn evil. AI could be good if you design it to be good. So that kind of saved the movie a bit for me. I still didn't like Age of Ultron very much, but the fact that they made a benevolent AI into a superhero, I really liked. So, yeah. So anyway, that was a long ramble off topic, but that is basically kind of like the Quicksilver synthesis bot. The Quicksilver synthesis bot started as a vendor NPC that had no personality at all. It just put some random weird text on the screen when you go to buy stuff from it. But then, as we did the community events, supposedly all the data that we were sending the Quicksilver synthesis bot made it into a more intelligent being, made it into a sentient AI. So it became the character in the final community event. And I hope that they'll consider doing more with the Quicksilver synthesis bot. They'll probably have more community events, and maybe it will be more involved in those, or maybe it could be the beginning of a whole new storyline. Like the Quicksilver synthesis bot will become the third member of the Nada and Polo group, and it will just be a regular NPC that will send us on missions and stuff like that. I would really like that. It's probably wishful thinking, but it's a good idea of how they could just create another character in the Nada and Polo space anomaly to give us a whole new storyline. I hope they will consider doing something like that. So anyway, moving on from that tangent, One Acro Year 1 comments, I wonder if the allusions to the teeth in the sky have anything to do with space whales. So we talked about the teeth in the sky that was mentioned in The Abyss, and I like his idea there. I don't think it would be space whales, but like I talked about in the Megafauna video, maybe they could create some kind of Lovecraftian monstrosity. Like that is what the Abyss could be. It could be some kind of giant monster in space, and something like that, like some kind of Leviathan that can swim through space that's like tentacled and has teeth, something like that. Who knows? Who knows if they're going to do anything with the teeth in the sky. I don't think it would be a space whale per se, but it could be something like that. We'll see. Next, Marla Mook says, all the time in the world, if the universe is destroyed, then the world no longer exists. So you quite literally have all the time in the world. So they're making reference to how I mentioned the final mission of the Atlas Rises storyline is called All the Time in the World, but it also says that the universe is ending. And they're right. All the time in the world means that you have all of the remaining time in the world. And since the universe is going to end, when it ends, you've run out of time. You've run out of all the time in the world. So we've got everything that's left until it ends, and then it's over. But again, I don't think they're ever going to actually... They're definitely never going to end the universe. The universe in No Man's Sky can't end. It could just be a plot device that maybe they would continue later and provide us some way to stop the end of the universe. Or they may just leave it open and supposedly we're always heading towards the end, but we'll never actually reach that. Because they can't, you know, delete the game from our consoles. The universe will never truly end to where we can't play anymore. We'll always be able to play No Man's Sky, even if they stop updating it. Even if Hello Games went out of business, we would still have our discs and we would still be able to play the game if we wanted to. So anyway, okay, I really like this guy. He left a really long comment, which I had to heavily paraphrase, but his name is the ARJ guy, and he says, I think if there was a way to stop the end of the universe / fix Atlas, it would be a community event that lasted weeks or even months. So that's a really cool idea. If they do provide a way, which I was just talking about, if they do provide a way for us to prevent the end of the universe, they could make it a community event, and we would have to work together to hack into the Atlas or whatever it would take to save the universe. Here's where the spoilers really come in. The universe is not ending because the Atlas is just breaking down. The universe is ending supposedly because the planet that the Atlas computer is on is about to be consumed by a black hole. So, unless that isn't true, or that's just some kind of a representation, then there isn't really a way for us to save the universe. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. He basically says that. In the next part, which I paraphrased, he says he doesn't think it will because A, lore in the game, and B, it ruins the current story and it doesn't make sense. Like the current end of the story would be like another major story. So he's saying, like I'm saying, that if you look at the actual lore, the prologue lore, let's see, do I have it on this save? No. You can access the prologue lore if you have the Heart of the Sun and the Remembrance upgrade that you get at the end of the Atlas Rises storyline, and the Atlas Path, you get the Heart of the Sun. If you have the Remembrance in your installed in your exosuit, you can get the prologue lore at locked doors, locked behind the Atlas 2 and Atlas 3 pass. The prologue lore talks about this, that the Atlas is actually being destroyed because a black hole is about to consume the planet it's on. So, like he said, it wouldn't make sense for there to be a way for us to save the universe, because there's really no way that we, programs inside of a simulation, could stop the computer that's making the simulation from being consumed by a black hole. Unless there's some bizarre Deus Ex Machina, there's no way for us to escape from that from that bit of information, as long as that's actually true. Some people have theorized that the Atlas is wrong and that it just thinks it's about to be destroyed, and that's why it's going haywire and deleting universes and stuff. But if it's true that the Atlas is about to be destroyed by a black hole, then there's no way that we can ever save it. And that would explain why they've left the end of the Atlas storyline, Atlas Rises storyline, open-ended, because there's no way to prevent it. We're living within the end of the Atlas, and all we can do is enjoy the simulation, which is running on its own time scale. The Atlas can run the simulation really fast, and so an incredibly long amount of time could remain for us because we are moving very quickly, but subjectively we think we're moving at a normal pace. So we could have what is to us many years to survive, while the Atlas is about to be destroyed in about 10 minutes in its time. So that may be the case. They may be saying that we're going to live out many, many years of fast forwarded simulation time in the last minutes before the Atlas is destroyed. And that's just the way that the storyline is going to end. So for us, the universe will never be destroyed, but supposedly it will be, which is kind of weak in my opinion. But okay, the ARJ guy goes on to talk about abyssal horrors. Both types call to us and trap us. So he's talking about, when I talked about, you know, the teeth in the sky, the abyss, this mysterious malevolent force which keeps trapping travelers and killing them, or they go insane and disappear. That could be, like he said, the abyssal horrors. There's two things that are referred to as abyssal horrors that were added in the Abyss update. The eyeball things that pull you in when you get close to them, or the anglerfish things, which you are attracted to them by the Hadal cores. They're these glowing angler lights that you find underwater, and if you interact with those and to get one of the Hadal cores, then those anglerfish appear and attack you. So basically he's saying that that whole theme of a malevolent force trapping travelers is just those baddies, the Hadal, the eyeballs and the anglerfish. Those are just things that lure you in, trap you, and try to kill you. So that might be true, but that is kind of sad because the lore builds up this malevolent abyss force, and it turns out it's just these new baddies, these eyeball things and these anglerfish that try to lure us in and attack us. That's kind of a letdown if that's what it is. So the abyss is not this, you know, incomprehensible force. It's just these new baddie creatures that they added. That, if it's true, is very disappointing, but he may be right. So who knows? We may never get the mysterious malevolent force. We may have already gotten it in the form of those new baddies. I hope that's wrong, but he may be right. Last that ARJ said was, because of our size and scale in the universe, we can never do much. So again, that's kind of like, we can never prevent the end of the Atlas, the end of the universe, because we're just too small and insignificant. A big part of No Man's Sky is making us feel like a speck out in the endless expanse of space. So in keeping with that, we could never become this great destined hero that saves the universe. We're just too small, we're just too insignificant. There's nothing we can do to save the universe. So although I really like ARJ's suggestions, they're kind of depressing, but he may very well be right. It's a very intelligent, I didn't read his whole big long comment. You should. If you go back to the video, read his whole comment, but he is thinking very intelligently, and he is probably analyzing it about correctly the way Hello Games intended. So yeah, I think that may be the theme of the game, is that we are insignificant in this giant universe and there's nothing that we can do to prevent its eventual end, and all we can do is just enjoy it while we can. and that's it. So whether that means we'll ever get another major storyline or not, I don't know, but he may be right. The Atlas Rises storyline is meant to end in an ambiguous way, the way it does, if that is the underlying theme that Hello Games is going for. Moving on to something a little more positive, Lord Markov, my friend, says that a major storyline will, and all of these are paraphrases of what he said, but he said that a major storyline will be unlocked after Atlas Rises and the Atlas Path. So it would be for experienced players that have already done those two storylines. And then the Dark Presence will have noticed us and will attack us with its agents. So basically, after you do Atlas Rises and Atlas Path, then this malevolent force becomes aware of us. The mysterious thing that is stalking us will start to attack us, and it will end with us using a portal to go to the world of glass. And he also mentions missions using the simulator in the space anomaly. So that would be a nice way for them to go. A nice direction that they could take is making a new storyline about the Dark Presence that happens after the other major storylines. And as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk a little bit more about Corrupted Sentinels. Corrupted Sentinels were added in the Visions update, but they aren't utilized very much. They can only appear when you dig up one of the new satellites. And I personally have never been able to get one to appear. Not on normal mode or on survival mode. I can't ever get Corrupt Sentinels to appear for me. So they're very underutilized for such a cool looking new thing. I've seen pictures of the Corrupt Sentinels. They're basically black sentinels with like 3 red eyes. They're really bizarre looking. So I really hope that they do more with them. Like Visions might have just been a slight preview of things to come, and that the Corrupt Sentinels will become used more in whatever new thing that they're going to do next with the game. I think that is very likely that that will happen, that we'll see the Corrupt Sentinels involved a lot more, and that does give me hope that there will be a malevolent force that will finally come into play, that malevolent force is corrupting the Sentinels and changing their appearance and all that, and that hopefully we'll get to fight the Corrupted Sentinels more and get to find out what created them and what is behind all of it. I hope he's right, and I hope that's what's going to happen. And he talked about use the simulator in the space anomaly. I'm not sure they're going to do that. I think the simulator is always going to just be for that one part of the Atlas Rises storyline. But I could be wrong. Maybe they will use it for something. But it would be cool if we could go into like some kind of special instanced event by going into the simulation ourselves. But I don't really think that's the way they're going to go. But it is an idea. We got 2 more very short comments here. A guy named Round Her said, basically what he said is that No Man's Sky is just about traveling, it's not about storyline. So he is one of those people that thinks, you know, No Man's Sky is a sandbox and storyline doesn't really have a place in it. It's just about our personal story as we travel through the universe, and there doesn't need to be a made-up story by Hello Games, that we need to just make our own story. I agree with that to an extent, but currently there's not much that we can do to make our own storyline. There's not enough to explore. So in a way, it's going back to the variety, that we need more variety. We need more exciting and bizarre things to explore in order to make our own story. Otherwise, our story is just wandering through a very samey universe with a lot of planets with the same assets on them that aren't very interesting. In order for us to make our own story, we have to be able to discover unique and interesting things that no one else has seen before. Otherwise, we're just reliving the same thing over and over, seeing the same things over and over, and that gets boring and is not all that great. So either Hello Games needs to make a storyline for us, or they need to put more variety into the game to make us able to just have our own adventure story where we discover things. And then Water Bears says, the Artemis story gave me big feels, to be honest. So, kind of the opposite of around her, Water Bears is saying that he really liked the Artemis storyline and that it was emotional for him. I kind of had an emotional response too, not so much with Artemis turning out to be dead, but more when we discovered that the universe was coming to an end. That was pretty emotional for me. Not like cry emotional. I don't think I shed any tears over the Atlas Rises storyline, but it was just a really exciting kind of moment for me. I was really excited that they were bringing an end of the universe idea into things, but although I was really excited at the time, it's because of that that I am disappointed now that they aren't doing anything else with the end of the universe storyline, or they haven't done anything yet. So I thought that it was the beginning of something really cool, that we were going to have to prevent the end of the universe, but it's looking like it might just be an open-ended, enjoy the universe while you can kind of thing, and it's never really going to go anywhere else. So anyway, lots of good comments here, some of them uplifting, some of them not so uplifting. I'm 100% sure that Hello Games will keep adding lore as they continue to update the game. They always add lore pretty much every update. Whether there will be an actual storyline that we participate in ever again, I don't know. I hope so. I hope they add a new major storyline someday, but that's just me. I'm a storyline buff and I like it when games have a really cool story, but I am prepared for the possibility that we won't, that we'll just keep getting more lore. So again, who knows? It's all just speculation and we're just gonna have to wait and see. But for now, I think that's about it. Thank you for everyone that contributed to the conversation about the storyline. And I will be back tomorrow with a new topic, which I already previewed. We're going to be discussing what I think is kind of on almost everybody's mind, the idea of a space-themed update. But yeah, that will be tomorrow. So for now, I have been Mac. Thank you for joining me for a day, and remember, everything is going to be okay.